Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beat joined by the one, the only, Gray Albright, the Fantasy Master Lothario, the Spectacled Wonder. How's it going over there, Gray?
Hey, good, B-Don. What's going on, man? How's it going?
It's going well. We're fully into baseball season. I had my first fab draft of the year, so I feel like that's the kickoff. Like when you start drafting, we're full tilt. Like it is time to go.
Yeah, I think you and I have, are you doing the CBS drafts with Scott White in them?
Yes, I am. So we have a draft this week. We're recording this Monday, February 17th, and we have one this Wednesday. So I think it's NL maybe this week.
Yeah,
It's either NL or AL. It's just one or the other.
I usually check like 5 minutes before so I know which war room to open.
But yes, we have those drafts, this auctions actually. So that'll be the first auction of the year as well. So I'm excited, Gray. It's a fun time of year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm in the middle of a draft right now with some Razzball people. We're doing a draft champions league, 50 rounds, 4 hours on the clock. And I think we've gone through about 3 picks in roughly 9 days. So, yeah, moving pretty fast, actually.
Yeah, good pace there. If you want something that's a little faster paced than that, we do have the RCLs out there that the post is up today actually on the site. I believe I'm doing one for $10 on March 26th, and there's a bunch of people doing other drafts throughout. So whenever you want to jump in or whenever you're available, those are always fun leagues. They're 12 teams, shallow benches, so a lot of churning, but it's a really fun chase. Also, we're still filling the podcast league, my custom head-to-head categories league. I just have the usual suspects in there, so if anybody wants to jump into that one, let me know. The Win Beat Money podcast league, which also gives you an opportunity to win your way into one of our fabulous Razzball contests. But without further ado, Gray, let's get into something that might be just as exciting as our fabulous Razzball contests, and that's shortstop rankings for 2025. The position is taking over baseball as the best in the game, other than outfield, which doesn't really fair. There's 3 spots for that. That doesn't really count. Infield position, shortstop's where it's at now. We already talked about 1 through 5 on previous podcasts. In the top 20 podcasts, we talked about Bobby Witt, Ellie, De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson, Francisco Lindor, and Mookie Betts. So we are on to the next tier here at number 6. Treat Earner, old favorite of the podcast. He's been near the top of the rankings for a long time. Last year in 121 games, 21 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 88, 62, 295, 338, 469. Young projected for 20 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 91, 72, 287. Everything was down a little bit, but not any kind of level to really be that worried about. I will say the hard hit, the barrel, average exit velocity, and walk rate were all kind of at lower levels than we're used to seeing. But he still did 2020 basically in 121 games. So what are your thoughts here on old Trey Turner?
Yeah, no, it's definitely we're in a good position now. We're in shortstops, which is fun, deep position that is exciting, except that we skipped over the good ones.
All the really fun ones, yes.
we are
not all of them, but
we're in a good position now. Finally, after the catchers, which were god awful, and the first baseman, which were surprisingly awful, and the second basemans, which were once again god awful. But now we're on shortstops. Now we're on shortstops, which are good. Yeah, I mean, I think I think I've said this numerous times before, but what the hell? Let's punish the people who listen to everything I say and and repeat myself one more time. I really don't trust position scarcity. It's not that I don't trust it. I don't believe in it. So I really think that the position drafting from a deep position, you want to draft them. You don't want to be like, oh, the shortstops are deep, so I don't need to draft one. Instead, I can draft a catcher. Nah, don't do that. That's what I'm saying not to do. Now, why I say to draft a deep position aggressively is because there's going to be other people in your league. So, for instance, if someone in your league has, Ellie De La Cruz, and someone else has Gunnar Henderson, and someone else has Bobby Witt Jr., and someone else has Mookie Betts at shortstop, you don't want to be like, but I got Tommy Edman. Nah, it's not good. That's the opposite of what you want. You don't want to be the guy who has, or girl who has the worst guy at a deep position, because the difference between, say, like, if you're like, oh, I'm going to skip taking a top shortstop, and I'm going to take a top catcher. So if you go and take William Contreras in the third round instead of Trey Turner, then you're going to get a guy who's going to give you, say, 25, 7, 280, 85 runs, 85 RBI, something like that, give or take ish. So you get that. And then the other guy, and then the other person in your league drafts someone like Cal Raleigh, 10 rounds later, and they get more or less the same stats minus, 50 points on average, and probably minus, 5 steals, but potentially more power. But still, it's like you're giving up a second or third round pick for William Contreras to have, to get 50 points in average from a catcher. And also, when we went over the catchers, I don't want to take the podcast about the best position and talk about the worst position, which I'm doing. But if you take, the best catcher, the difference between the best catcher and, say, like the 10th best catcher is not that dramatically different. But the difference between, like, the best shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr., and the 10th best shortstop, Willy Adames, could be potentially dramatically different. Like, just on its surface, you're talking about a difference of, like, 5 to 7 homers, 25 steals, potentially 80 points on average. Runs and RBIs are going to be better. Like, there's so much difference between shortstops in that case. So, I say draft aggressively a deep position, because if you're getting, 2 good shortstops, you're getting 2 good players. It's not like at the end of the day, someone's going to be like, well, yeah, sure, you did well in your league, but you had Bobby Witt Jr. and CJ Abrams. Of course you did well. It's like, yeah, I did well because I drafted them. I drafted top shortstop. That's why I did well. So it's like, don't worry so much about drafting. It's like, if you want to draft 2 top shortstops, or 2 top 10 shortstops, I say go for it. Like, if you're like, okay, I'm gonna have Bobby Witt Jr., and then for my MI, I'm gonna, like, turn around and get, like, say Anthony Volpe, who is a little bit further along than, he's like top 12, but still he's a really good shortstop, and that's, still a good player. So I say draft aggressively a top position. And with that said, Trey Turner, while, he is not what he was as recently as, prior to him needing the Philadelphia Phillies fans to clap for him during every at bat. Now it's like, you get a guy like Trey Turner, and it's like, he only performs well if the fans cheer for him, and then you put him in Philly. It's not the best idea to have a guy who needs cheering in one of the toughest places to play. But anyway, I think Trey Turner now is a solid shortstop for, 4/5 of the season, we'll say. He usually at this point in his career, he usually misses about a month. Now, depending on how deep the league is, if you're in a league that's like, say a 12-team mixed league, the RCL leagues that you were talking about up front, if you're in an RCL, you can fill in for Trey Turner off of waivers pretty easily. So that makes him a little more valuable. And then if you're in a deeper league or a league with no waivers, like the Draft Champions League that I'm currently drafting that I mentioned earlier, if you're in a league like that, then Trey Turner might take a little bit of a hit because you're not going to be able to get a guy off of waivers to fill in for him. So you have to consider, his prorated stats aren't necessarily going to get any better. So yeah, I like Trey Turner. I think, you mentioned some of the bigger issues with the hard hit, barrel, exit velocity, all those things being down, which, not great, but also we're not talking about Matt Olson or Pete Alonso or Christian Walker here. We're not talking about a guy who needs to necessarily, have a top hard hit rate. Like Trey Turner has got speed enough where he's still got enough speed where if he can steal 20 bags, which he should be able to do, and if he can get into 20 homers, he's still neutrally a good hitter and a good enough hitter with his speed that he should be fine for, a 280-ish average and all the runs and RBIs that come with playing in say 120 to 130 games in the Phillies lineup, at the top of the Phillies lineup, well, right below Schwarber. But yeah, like hitting number 2 in front of Bryce Harper, right below Kyle Schwarber, and, hitting 280, 285, going 20-20, the runs and RBIs that come with that. So say like, roughly 85 runs, 70-ish RBIs. So, yeah, I mean, all those numbers are solid enough. And I think there's also, like, he's 31 years old right now. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of upside here, but you never know. If he stays healthy, like if he has like a throwback year where he stays on the field and he's able to stay healthy, there's a chance here for 105 runs, 75 to 85 RBIs, a 285 plus average, and still the 20 to 25 homers, 20 to 30 steals, that type of year. And he ends up like a top 15 overall player. But I think at worst, at least according to his, previous years, at worst, he's never really been worse than a top 50 player, at least in the last, ever since he's, started playing every day in his career. So he's always really rock solid to put up solid production. It's just, at this point, I'd probably take off like, 20 games because he has these little like, hammy injuries. Or last year he had a kind of fluky injury with his hand. But still, with all that said, I'm still fine drafting Trey Turner. I would happily would take him. Probably, where he's going in ADP is early second. It's the kind of pick that I think if you have, say, like a Yordan Alvarez, if you picked late in the first round and you got like a Vlad Guerrero Jr. or a Yordan Alvarez, and then you turn around and you take like a Trey Turner, I'd be happy with it. I'd be fine. I think he's pretty much, exactly what you expect to get from Trey Turner is what you should get from him. So, and that's good. There's good production there.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. I have him in the same tier with the two other guys we're going to talk about, but I have him at the bottom of the tier just because the upside I feel like is gone. So it's kind of a, track record versus upside of the next two guys we're going to talk about. In addition to the batted ball, it was the worst first strike rate since his rookie year. His swing rate was the highest of his career. Those two combined aren't usually great signals of bat speed. The worst line drive rate of the last 6 years, highest ground ball rate of the last 5. He's always been like top 5 fastest in the league. Now he's more like top 25, which is still super fast. I mean, he can steal the bases. I'm just worried a little bit about the average and the power, but he's still done it. So I have him in the same tier. I just have him at the bottom of it because I don't think he's improving a lot. I guess there's the chance that the Phillies just let him run randomly and he could steal 35 bases still, and that would definitely help kind of boost him up. But that hasn't really been the path that he's been on since he's been in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And I really like the next 2 guys that we're going to go over in this tier. So, you saying he's below the next 2 is fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. I think, it's sort of splitting hairs a little bit. It's kind of just it's a preference thing at this point. Like if you're feeling like, maybe if you're at the turn and you've taken like Churio or Duran in the second and Trey Turner's there, and you just took 2 guys, you just took one of those outfielders who has a little bit of more risk, and you feel like you want a little bit more safety, you take Trey Turner. Or if you took like a Bryce Harper and you're like, well, I don't really want another Philly, and I also feel like I'd like a little bit more upside, then you could go like O'Neal Cruz or CJ Abrams, the other 2 guys in this tier.
Yeah, so let's just jump to the next guy, which is number 7, O'Neal Cruz. Last year went 21, 22, 72, 76, 259, 324, 449. Young projected for 28 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 81, 86, 257. Second half K rate dropped to 27% with a 10.6% walk rate, which is nice to see. He also hit 277. Granted, that was with a really hot August, so a little bit of a small sample bias there, but did look much better in the second half. What are your thoughts on O'Neal Cruz here?
Oh God, I love him. I love O'Neal Cruz. I think there's potential here for I think he's at this point he's being drafted, at least in most leagues, he's being drafted kind of where he should be. So I don't want to pretend like there's some great value. His maybe a little bit. Like I think I have him like in the 30s, and his ADP right now is around 41. So, and that's beginning of actually middle of February. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like there's huge value here, but I do think like if there's any guys who are going to, are on the precipice of going from like a second to third round guy to a first rounder, I feel like O'Neal Cruz is that guy. I say that with like, I think there's more than likely that happens at some point. I don't think like, like there's a chance for a lot of guys to do that, to have like, first round type years. Like we just saw like, Brent Rooker's huge year last year. Like there's opportunities for a lot of players to do it. But I think O'Neal Cruz, like if I had to, put the odds, I think O'Neal Cruz's odds are better than a lot of players who are being drafted in like the 3rd or 4th round. Like I think O'Neal Cruz is a superstar. He hasn't gone there yet. I really believe like, him, I feel like his power is a little bit better than Elly De La Cruz, but his speed is probably less. I think there's a 35-40 homer O'Neal Cruz type year in him with probably closer to like 20 steals, just because of that ankle injury from 2 years ago that I don't know how much stealing he's really going to be doing going forward, because he's more of a 3-hole hitter at this point for the Pirates. But still, even with that said, he does have enough speed to like he could steal 35 bags if he's feeling healthy and he really wanted to. And what you mentioned with the splits, I think is really important too. It's like, he's getting better. We haven't seen the best, I think, yet of O'Neal Cruz. I think there's, potential for him. Like, the second half K rate, as you mentioned, at 27.1%, and his walk rate of 10.6%. If he can do that starting in April of this year, then he's probably a 275 hitter, right? I mean, he's not much worse than that. So, 275, 30-ish homers, 20-ish steals. That's basically Gunnar Henderson. Like I really like. I want O'Neal Cruz in every league. I'm trying to draft him everywhere. I think he's really like just about at the precipice of being a superstar. I'm interested in seeing what he can do in a full year, a full year after his injury. So I'm in big time. I really like him. I think my one concern really is probably like if he starts hitting better, but the speed, he just sort of becomes more of a 15 steal guy and just lets the steals fall off of his game. I mean, I don't know. It's like that just sometimes happens. It's hard to anticipate something like that. But yeah, I think he's really talented. I'm a big fan. I think it's weird when you look at like I just don't get sometimes like the like I projected him for 28 homers, I believe. Yeah, and so 28 homers. He hit 21 last year. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like that crazy of a jump for a guy as talented as him, as young as him. But then you look at like projections, and like some people are projecting him for like 22 homers. So like one more homer. I mean, he hits the snot out of the ball. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he hits the ball so hard. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I might be a little bit higher on him than some people, but I don't think by that much considering his ADP. Yeah, I'm in. I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. The tools are super allowed. He was 8th in hard hit, 3rd in average exit velocity, 9th in barrel rate, 41st in 80-foot splits. So the speed is there to grow. The hard hit is there to grow. Like we're really just kind of waiting for him to put it all together and live up to the amount of tools. It could be as simple as, if somebody gets him to put a little launch angle in there, all of a sudden he's a 30 home run hitter, hitting more line drives, more fly balls, and then he doesn't really have to change anything other than that because he's hitting the ball plenty hard. He's plenty fast. As we mentioned, the K rate is coming down. All things we want to see from a developing star. And you mentioned where you have him in your rankings. I have him at 20th overall, Gray. So I have him.
Nice.
I have him very high. You will not get him in our drafts.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it sounds like I might not get him in our NL only draft.
It's very possible, although just as a plant here, if you need to, you can also throw out this next guy who I actually have above O'Neal Cruz in my rankings, and that is CJ Abrams, who comes in at 8 for you. Last year had 20 home runs, 31 stolen bases, 79, 65, 246, 314, 433. You have him down for 20 home runs, 34 stolen bases, 87, 66, and 244. He had a wrist, back, and shoulder stuff from June pretty much through the end of the season. Really struggled in July and August. So following the injury, he got demoted for gambling and staying out late. That being said, he actually had a better hard hit and average exit velocity in his second full season. And you heard the numbers. The numbers were pretty good. So I love CJ Abrams.
Yeah, no, I like him too. I will say though, he had the wrist, the back, and the shoulder injuries, but he bet that he would have wrist, back, and shoulder injuries. So it's kind of a push in some ways.
He bet the over on 25-35 or the under on 25-35 for himself. Had to make sure something happened.
Yeah, exactly. you don't want to bet the under. It's like some people who are like, yeah, I mean, Pete Rose bet that his team would win. Is that so bad? It's like, yeah, that's actually bad. That's bad. I'm sorry. I don't want to blow your mind or anything, but that's bad. Anyway, CJ Abrams, you said you had O'Neal Cruz at 20 overall. Where do you have CJ Abrams if he's above him?
18.
Wow. Wow, my man. B-Don coming with the aggressive CJ Abrams ranking. I like it. I like it, B-Don. You crazy. You crazy.
Am I great or am I just a genius?
It's a little crazy. So it's kind of like I don't really like I don't want to be the the guy who's the wet blanket here, because I do like CJ Abrams. I like him as well. So I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, he does feel like he's maxed out at around 20 homers. Now that's fine. I mean, that's good. I said, like Trey Turner, I'm putting down for like 20 homers. So it's not like, I think 20 homers is bad for a guy who has 40 plus steal speed. That's great. I have no problem with it. CJ Abrams, though, I think is maxed at 20 homers. And then the caught stealings are a little bit crazy with the, last year he was in the doghouse for going to the MGM Mirage or wherever he went. The Caesars Palace Resort of Detroit, wherever CJ Abrams went, I don't know. But anyway, he was in the doghouse for that. But he was also, I mean, he might have been in the doghouse because he was caught stealing so much. Now, I don't know that for a fact. Davey Johnson, Davey Martinez, he loves to run. So, I'm not going to say CJ Abrams can't steal 45 bags because he does have the speed, and David Martinez is more than happy to let anyone just run on the base paths. So that's good. So I do also like CJ Abrams, but I think probably, more realistically, 20 homers with an eye on 17 and 35 homers with with probably an eye on 30 versus 40. But, all in all, not bad. I would happily take it. I think, if we're going for over-unders, I would probably say 20 over-under on homers, 35 over-under on steals, and 245-ish. I mean, he's hit 245 basically for the last 3 years. So yeah, I mean, that feels like, it's like you can say potentially he gets better with strikeouts and his average might go up, but realistically, he's more or less a 245 hitter. So I like those. I like all that though. I mean, he should be hitting leadoff in front of Dylan Cruz and James Wood, which is, sexy as all get out. I will definitely be watching a lot of national games this year. I'm a fan for sure. I think though, I do have him below Trey Turner and O'Neal Cruz. Trey Turner, because I feel like Trey Turner is just safer, and O'Neal Cruz feels like a little bit more upside than CJ Abrams. But I do like CJ Abrams.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I will say, in regards to the stolen bases, caught stealings, he had 15 stolen bases in the first half with 10 caught stealings. That's a terrible ratio. In the second half, he had 16 stolen bases with only 2 caught stealings. So I think they might have told him, like, hey, You can still run, but like maybe don't be an idiot about it. He actually had more stolen bases, but he had more stolen bases in the second half, Gray.
Why are you not the manager of a baseball team? Hey, you can steal, just don't be an idiot about it.
I'm just saying that's a big turnaround from 10 caught stealing
You know
to
what?
2.
Listen, hey, come here.
I'm
Hey,
just saying.
come here. Hey, come here. Hey, let me say something. All right. Hey, you can be a good baseball player. Just don't be an idiot about it. All right.
He's also going to be 24. He had 15 home runs in the first half. He missed, like I said, 20 games, give or take. I think there's still upside on all the numbers. And as you mentioned, the Nationals are going to let them run whenever they want.
I wonder if Davey Martinez has like caught stealing blindness. It just affects his ability to see caught stealings, because
all right.
the fact that a guy is like caught stealing 10 times out of 15. That's so awful. It's like, wait, at a certain, like any other team would have been like, hey man, you're being an idiot, to use your terminology. Hey guy, you're being an idiot about like running in terrible spots. He's so bad. CJ Abrams is so fast. It's actually, I want to say he probably had money on getting caught stealing, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Okay, anyway,
we're moving on to the next tier here. I love CJ Abrams. Gray ignores everything I say. It's okay. We'll be here next year when CJ Abrams is top 5 player, and it'll be fine. He won't give me credit. It'll be fine.
Wow.
Don't worry. Next tier. Corey Seager at 9, 123 games, 30 home runs, a stolen base, 68, 74, 278, 353, 512. You have projected for 31 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 76, 82, 282, and 489 at bats. It was his highest K rate since 2019, worst line drive rate of his career. But everything else is pretty much within average of his last 5 years. Nothing really out of line. He seems to get 30 home runs regardless of whether he plays 100 games or 150 games. Although I guess we wouldn't know. He's never really played 150 games.
Yeah, I think no. I mean, he has played 150 games.
He has.
I think. Sorry, sorry. I didn't mean to be Mr. Literal. I think Corey Seager is no. I mean, I think there is something to what you're saying though, because it's like he is like a 30 homer guy, whether he plays in 50 games or 150 games. He's just like, it's just like if he plays in 10 games, he's gonna hit 3 homers every game for 10 games. And then he's not gonna play for 150 games. I drafted Corey Seager in like one of my first drafts this year, which was like the first time I think I've ever drafted Corey Seager. It was a little weird for me, to be honest. It was an auction draft, so it wasn't like I was sitting there with 4 hours on the clock and I convinced myself to draft Corey Seager. It was quite the opposite. I had 10 seconds on the clock and I convinced myself to draft Corey Seager. But I mean, he is very reliable for a certain amount of production. He's not like, I feel like he's not necessarily like this huge upside guy, but he is, he's kind of got like corner man vibes when it comes to his stats. He has these like, 30 homer, the runs and RBIs that come with being in the, the middle of the lineup, and hits like 275, 285, somewhere in there. He has no speed at all. So that, like, I think he works for me this year more so, maybe because I just drafted him, but maybe more so than any other year. He works for me as long as you're in a position where you have the steals that you can handle having a shortstop with no steals. Because like most times a shortstop is coming with a lot of steals, or at least a decent number where you feel like you don't have to get steals elsewhere. but when you get a Corey Seager, you might have to look at a guy like Jacob Young or something, where you're like, I don't really want steals here, but I'm going to have to take them because I got Corey Seager. I think in the league where I got Corey Seager, I might get this wrong, but I think I drafted Stephen Kwan hoping for 20 steals from him. I think, but it's something like that where it's like you have to look for steals elsewhere. So I don't mind Corey Seager though, as long as you keep that in mind. I also, I think there is something to like in a like I mentioned earlier with Trey Turner. There is something to him only playing like roughly 4/5 of the season. So in a 12-team mixed league, you're going to look at Corey Seager maybe a little bit differently than in a 15-team mixed league where you have no waivers. So if you're able to fill in for Corey Seager off of waivers in a shallower league, he looks a lot more attractive there. And then in a deeper league where there's no waivers, you have to take that into account that there's going to be weeks, or even where there is waivers, like in a 15-team mixed league where there is waivers, you have to take into account if it's a weekly league. Also, a weekly league versus a daily league also changes the dynamic too. Like if it's a weekly league, you get like to Monday, Corey Seager has a day-to-day injury that knocks him out for 5 days, and you're stuck with nothing, because it's Monday and waivers ran on Sunday. So yeah, it's like you just have to take different things into account with Corey Seager that you may not with other guys who have similar numbers. So it's good that he has 30 homer power and 280-ish average, and the 75 85 runs RBIs kind of thing. That's all good, but you do have to consider other elements of like his playing time and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the type of league you're playing in may determine, shallow, deep, draft and hold, best ball, because those all have different replacement levels or replacement capabilities when you draft a guy like Corey Seager. I want to know what his bonus is for 30 home runs, Gray. Because again, it feels like he gets there and kind of just like, okay, we're just gonna wind it down. We're done for the season. Or he like comes back. He's like, all right, I got a month and a half. I need 12 home runs. Let's just go on a little tear here. Yeah, we can do that. And like just he just plans it out. So yeah, I want to see what that bonus is at 30 for Mr. Seager. Number 10, Willie Adames, who signed with San Francisco. Last year had 32 home runs, 21 stolen bases, 93, 112, 251, 331, 462. Young projected for 27 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 81, 92, and 238. I mean, I think the question is just, was this a contract year? Is San Francisco going to let him run? Because he had a career high in stolen bases by 13, Ray.
Yeah, no, I think also I want to say we probably went over him in the winter meetings thing, but yeah, that was a while ago. I don't even remember if we went over it, so people aren't going to remember if we did anyway. So I guess it's irrelevant for me to bring it up. Yeah, Willie Adames is kind of interesting in that, like, I feel like he might at this point becoming like a post hype. Let's see. No, that's not right. Like a post overrated sleeper, because like I think he was overrated, but like when he signed with the Giants, I thought he was overrated, and now I think everyone thinks he's overrated, and he's gone back to being like somewhat rated, if that tracks. Like I think like everyone thought like it was like Willie Adames, oh no, he stinks, and maybe there's something to that. But then you look at like his his ADP seems okay-ish, but like I'm in a league right now, in a 15-team mixed league, and he went really late. I want to say like in the after 100 overall. And at that point, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's not bad. If you're getting Willie Adames after 100 overall, it seems like a solid enough price, right? I mean, his max pick is 127. I think he's been, and I think he's been falling of late, at least. I don't know, maybe not. I have, I have the ADP in front of me, but I also, what's really kind of, I think what's something that's people should keep in mind with ADP is like it's so important to look at like ADP for when you're actually like from like maybe 2 weeks to when you're drafting. Because if you're like looking at ADP from like November, it's like so weird. Like it's just it's just not telling you the same things as like the most recent ADP. So like ADP right now has Willy Adames at 84. And by right now, I mean the last 2 weeks from when we're recording this. So February 1st through like the 17th. So he's at 84 overall in ADP with a max of 120 in that 2-week time frame. That's not bad. Like, I don't mind Willy Adames anymore. Like, I kind of didn't like. I was worried that his ADP would be much higher, and when he signed with the Giants, I was out because I figured he would be like like he's coming off a 32-21 251 season, and I get how everything there is like on the high side. Like that does read as a career year. Like I'm not going to pretend like Willy Adames is going to repeat any of that. But if he does say, I don't know, say take me out of the equation and look at other people's projections. If he does what Steamer says, 25 homers, 14 steals, 240 average, that's not bad at 85 overall. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like I'm sort of like feel like I might be a little bit more interested in Adames than I was before, but not like crazy interested. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to push Willy Adames up the board and get super excited about him, but I kind of feel like at his price in the last 2 weeks, it's sort of it's come back to earth recently, and I don't know. I mean, I don't hate it as much as I used to.
I still hate it. I mean, I guess after 100, I'm okay with it. I'm more okay with it. But like, I don't really understand where Steamer's coming up with 14 stolen bases. Like last year was career year at 21. Which again came out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere. He's not like a fast player. The Giants don't run. Why would he have 14 when he's never had 10 before? I know this sounds a lot like me rambling about Freddie Freeman 3 years ago, but like, why would he repeat 21 stolen bases? It just doesn't make any sense. Him moving to a team that does run to a team that doesn't run.
Except for Matt Chapman.
Except for random, yeah. I don't know. I can't explain that one either. And then like he's also going from the number 7 best home run park for righties to the number 28 home run park for righties for a guy who's had questionable power year to year as it is. I mean, I feel like the 25, 5, 240 is going to disappoint a lot of people this year, and it's kind of what I'm expecting from him. So I have him ranked not far from where you do, but it's one of those situations where like if he comes up and my player rank says I'm supposed to take him, I'm going to convince myself I need a pitcher or something because I just don't want him.
Yeah. I mean, now you're reminding me why I didn't like him. Okay, so ignore.
All right. Well, let's move on to number 11, and again, we're going to talk about the projection for number 11, who we both like, I think, but it's why we have Willy Adames ranked over him. Like, how can you not have him over number 11, which starts a new tier for you? Ezequiel Tovar, last year at 26 home runs, 6 stolen bases. 83, 78, 269, 295, 469. Your objective for 24 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 92, 71, 274. launch angle went up, barrel, hard hit, exit velocity all went up. K rate was better. Swing strike rate did go up a little bit. He got a little bit more aggressive, but it helped and it provided a little bit more, bang for the buck there on Tovar. But again, you hear the numbers and you're like, well, I can't put him behind or in front of Willy Adames, right?
Yeah. It's just the lack of speed, really. Like I don't even want to say speed, the lack of running, the lack of steals, even though he stole 6 bags and got caught 5 times for CJ.
Yeah, not great.
CJ Abrams in April type numbers. I do like Tofar. I think with his K rate, if his K rate goes down again, it went up a little bit last year, but if it goes down again to like previous, like 27 was the previous year. If he cuts it to like 26, I mean, there is a chance here where I think he could hit for 280. I think he can get into a 275, 280 average. Like I think that potential is there. I don't have him projected for that, but I think that 280 average is there potentially. I think he's probably maxed out on power. Like he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to get to 30 homers, but I mean, I didn't really think he was going to get to 26 homers last year, and he got there. So, yeah, I mean, I have like, I agree with what you're saying. I think you look at him and you're like, I like him a lot, but when you really like break down his numbers, you're like, yeah, I mean, I like him, but he's also, I think, he has some, like, he's fine, but he doesn't really have like this, like, it's hard to see the upside. There's nowhere really to look at it and be like, oh, okay, I can see that. Like, I guess the steals, if he figures out like how to steal bags and they actually let him steal bags, I guess, there's 15 steals somewhere in there. Like, I mean, he did have steals in the minors, and he is, he just turned 23. So like he should be able to run more, but I don't know. He hasn't really shown that the best ability to steal bags. So yeah, I don't know. It's like it's hard to see the upside, but I think he is more or less safe for what he is. So, if he's a if he's like a top two hitter in the Rockies lineup, assuming Doyle 1, him 2, I guess. And then behind him is there's no one behind them. That's it, actually. That's the whole
Chris Bryant, obviously going to be there for 160 games, Gray.
Yeah, well, Chris. Okay, so you write in Chris Bryant for 700 at bats, but if you're really smart about it, you're gonna want to use a really light pencil. Like if you can find a pencil the same shade as the paper you're writing on, and you write in his at bats. Yeah, I mean, I like Tofar. I just don't think there's a ton of upside, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I think the best probably case scenario for Tofar is 25 homer, 7 steals a year, 280 average, and he has a ton of runs and RBIs just because luck would have it. He doesn't, like, he just happens to get lucky. Sometimes guys luck into good counting stats. So sometimes that happens, and if it happens at Tofar, he could have a top 50 overall year. It just not necessarily have any huge upside numbers where he stays relatively what you expect with the power and speed.
Yeah, he's going to accumulate his way there, just kind of bit by bit as it goes. So yeah, I agree. just the upside, I don't know where it's coming from. I think I'm with you in regards to that kind of point. I will say he's only 22 or 23 years old, so anybody that's young can certainly grow into a little bit of power, but I don't necessarily see him becoming a 35 home run type of guy. Even 30 feels like a little bit like much. Like you said, like 26 seemed like him stretching. The numbers kind of pointed out he was being more aggressive to that point to kind of find those home runs. So I don't know how much more he can take that and just not have the average also bottom out on him as well. So I like him, but as you dig in the numbers, as you said, you just kind of like you're like, oh, maybe not. Whereas opposite maybe of the next guy, where I was like, I'm just gonna kind of bury him. And as I started looking at the numbers and everything, I'm like, I don't think I can bury him. And that is Anthony Volpe, who comes in at number 12. Last year had 12 home runs, 28 stolen bases, 90, 60, 243. You have him down for 20, 26, 87, 62, and 252. He dropped 5 points on the over 5 points on the K rate. He's kind of the opposite of Tovar in regards that he became more disciplined, but that came at a little bit of a less hard contact, less authority in the ball contact. But the numbers are there.
Yeah, he's like, the great thing with Anthony Volpe is the power and speed feel pretty like they feel like a floor at where he's shown already. Like he already hit 21 homers in a year, and last year he stole 28 bags. So it's like if that stuff is at the floor, I think there's real serious upside here. Like I struggled with getting him higher because like the problem for him is really like the K rate last year was 22.6%, which isn't bad at all, but he only hit and he had a 303 BABIP. So roughly, I mean, he has some speed. So, maybe the BABIP can go up to 315, 320, but still he only hit 243. So that takes you to like, well, how on earth did he have like a good strikeout rate and only hit 243? Well, I mean, it's obvious. The problem is his hard hit is so bad. So he had like no hard hit percentage. So he hit under 25% hard hit. So that takes you to like, well, where was he hitting the ball? Was it into the ground or was it into the air? So, I mean, the good thing is, I guess, it was all ground balls. So if he's able to like up his, maybe up his launch angle a tad, up his hard hit a tad, there could be a serious breakout here. But those are not easy. I mean, I'm just saying like, oh yeah, up your launch angle, up your hard hit, and you're good. Like those are hard things to do. It's not like you can just accidentally like up your hard hit. So I like him, but I think he's probably, if he's 2020 at his floor with power and speed, that's great. But I also think he's probably neutrally around a 240, 250 hitter, like, and which is fine. But if there's any fallback from there, what's the fallback to? 220, 215? Like how bad can the average get? Because I don't know how much upside there is on that average is the problem without him hitting the ball much harder. So the good news is he did hit the ball a little bit harder in 2023, and also has had a higher launch angle in 2023. So he's done it before. It's just doing it again, really, which it's kind of like it's a little bit like you're a wish and a prayer that he's going to do it again. But he has done it, so there is a chance at least. I like the upside gamble. I don't mind Anthony Volpe at all. I would draft him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to sit at the top of the order for at least half of the game. So, I mean, that's also a nice little benefit there, and that should afford him some good pitches as it did last year. Yeah, I like Volpe. He's fine. Again, I don't love him. I'm not gonna shuffle him up my draft board to reach for him. But yeah, I mean, I have nothing wrong with him if he's sitting there and I need a shortstop. Absolutely. The next three on your list we talked about on the Second Baseman podcast, which is Matt McClain, who I love. Number 14, Nico Horner, who I also love, and number 15, Bryson Stott. Coming in at number 16 is Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn with a Y, but it's not where you think. He had 15 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 85, 57, 267. You have him down for 24, 15, 94, 60, and 271. I mean, if we were talking about, Volpe not hitting the ball hard, like Mason Wynn doesn't hit the ball hard either.
No. No. I mean, no. You also, though, you have to admit you hate all Cardinals.
Everything Cardinal related. Yes, this is factual.
Yes, yeah. So there's that. I actually like Mason Wynn. I think there's he like Volpe, he doesn't hit the ball hard either. But unlike Volpe, he had a much better strikeout rate and hit 267 last year. So I think with like Mason Wynn, so with Mason Wynn with his strikeout rate and his average, 267 or whatever, he just has to repeat it. Like he doesn't have to get better. Like with Volpe, we had a guy who we felt like had to get better in order to really meet a ceiling. Where Mason Wynn, I don't think has to get better with his strikeouts or his contact. Now it may be weak-ish contact, but he hit 15 homers last year and hit 267. So yes, it's weak contact, but he did perfectly fine with it. Now the one real thing that I'm hoping for from Wynn that and the reason why I wrote the sleeper post on him is that he had 11 steals last year, was caught 5 times, but he has much more speed than that. So I'm sort of like, now talking about a wish and a prayer, I am wishing and praying that the power and the speed really come into their own this year because, he's 22 years old. He turns 23 during spring training. So he's going to be 23 years old. He's, his first full year, really, first full year was last year. So he's coming off of his rookie year where he went 15-11, but has more speed. So figure, at least like with the pitch clock, I feel like he could steal 30 bags. I don't want to, I don't want to get too crazy with myself. So I projected him for 15 steals, but I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot more speed here than we're even accounting for. And the power, I think the power is yes, the contact was weak, but he does hit a decent number of fly balls. His homer per fly ball was pretty low. If it can get, it was at 8.4% last year. If he can get to like 12% on the homer per fly ball, and I think he just has to hit the ball in the air in the right stadiums a couple times. It's not hard. It's not hard. It won't be hard for him. This is really wish fulfillment here. But I really think Mason Wynn, if things break the right way, he can break out this year. I actually really like Mason Wynn a lot. I think there's a real chance here that he could come into his own. He was developing power. He had a 50 grade power as a prospect, 60 grade speed. He has the tools, 60 grade hit tool. I think he has all the tools. It just really has to come together. So yeah, I'm in, but I will say at this point, these are MIs at this point, and in most leagues at least. And maybe in a deeper league, you're still looking at a shortstop, but in most leagues, we're talking about middle infielders now. And yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with Mason Wynn as my MI.
Yeah, that's super sexy. 32% hard hit and 3.7% barrel rate. Those are great numbers. Then again, they would be great numbers for the next guy on the list, who is number 17, Xavier Edwards. Last year in 70 games, he had 1 home run, 31 stolen bases, 39, 26, and hit 328. You him down for 4 home runs, 36 stolen bases, 84, 39, and 286. If Mason Wynn doesn't hit the ball hard, Xavier Edwards, I mean, he really, really doesn't hit the ball hard there. Like
they're like the Russian nesting dolls of weak contact. Anthony Volpe, Mason Wynn, and Xavier Edwards. I think Edwards again, like Edwards, Wynn, and Volpe to a certain extent. Like I think they are weak contact. Edwards had a 1.8% barrel percentage. So Edwards doesn't hit the ball hard. He hits the ball on the ground, but he's fast. So I mean, I don't care. Just run, man. Run, bro. I think I don't know. I don't mind Edwards either. Like for an MI, yeah, I mean, you gotta expect, don't expect 30 homers from him, but if you get 5 homers, 35 steals. I mean, last year he stole 31 bags in only 70 games. I'm not going to prorate it out and say he's going to steal 60, but if he goes 5, 40, 280, I mean, that's not terrible for an MI. And there's a place for that. I mean, it's not on every team, but like we were saying earlier with Corey Seager, like if you have Corey Seager at shortstop, Xavier Edwards works perfectly as your MI because he's doing the exact opposite. He's giving you the same amount of steals that Seager gives you. He's giving you that in homers and vice versa.
Yeah, no, I know I gave you a hard time, but I actually don't hate Xavier Edwards. I like him for what he is. I just wanted to point out that he's not going to hit you home runs. Just do not expect that from him, and expectations are in line then.
Yeah.
Next tier here, number 18 is Xander Bogaerts, who we talked about on the Second Baseman podcast. So number 19 is Jeremy Pena. Last year had 15 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 78, 70, 266, 308, 394. You have him down for 14 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 74, 72, and 258. Dropped the K rate down a few points. Walk rate went down a little bit as well. But the contact slightly improved across the board. And randomly, the sprint speed got a slightly better. So pretty good signs on Pena, but even with that, he went 15, 20 to 65.
Yeah, no, I think also whatchamacallit? His hard hit is really good. I think with Jeremy Pena, my biggest issue when I was doing the rankings was like looking at him and trying to make heads or tail as to what to expect, because like 1 year he's a 20-something homer hitter, next year he's a 10 homer hitter, then he sort of split the difference and hit 15, and then like the steals did almost the exact same. It was like 1 year he's 10, another year he's 20, another year he's 13. So it's really like hard to grasp exactly what you're going to get, which in fantasy, reliability has a lot of value, so it's like if you're trying to put together a team and you want to know what to expect, and if you don't know what to expect, it makes things a little bit more difficult. So I think Jeremy Pena probably is at his he probably is a 25, well maybe not 25, but say 22 homer, 22 steal, 270 hitter in best case scenario for all his stats. Like that's best case scenario. But the worst case is like anywhere from like 10 homers to 10 steals to 250. So it's like he could go 22-20 or 10-10. And it's like, that's not, I mean, that's a really a wide swing of potential projection. So it's hard to know what to get there. It's not that I don't like Jeremy Pena. I just feel like there's so much variance that you have to look at him and be like, okay, well, I don't really know what I'm getting. and good luck to me. That's kind of what I say for when I draft a lot of players. I don't know what I'm getting, and good luck to me. So yeah, I mean, he is really like, if nothing else, I will say with Jeremy Pena, he does seem to play a lot, and the Astros really like him, and he doesn't walk a ton, so he gets a lot of at bats. So he really has a lot of opportunities to do stuff. So hopefully he does well with those opportunities.
Yeah, I don't mind Jeremy Pena either. Number 20, Willie Castro. We talked about him already. 21, Dansby Swanson. Last year had 16 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 82, 66, 242, 312, 390. You him down for 19 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 78, 67, and 248. Line drive rate was down. Home run to fly ball was the worst in 7 years. He did hit 281 with 7 home runs and 14 stolen bases in the second half, so that is something positive that we can point to. K rate was down during that time. Dansby Swanson, Gray.
Yeah. I mean, he's he kind of reminds me a bit of Nomar Garciaparra with, like, I don't know, maybe because they're both married to soccer players, but like I don't know why else they remind me of each other. No, he reminds me of that because it's like I felt like Nomar actually had some really good early years, but what I was going to say was, like, Dansby Swanson, I feel like I had really high hopes for him to have like seriously great years, and that never really materialized. And now, like, that he's 31, I don't think we're ever going to get those years. Like, I think, I don't know. Like, I feel like the best is behind him. And I don't really, I don't anticipate like a lot from, from him. I think if anything, maybe he has a bounce back with power. I don't know. Like the Wrigley, as I've mentioned in previous shows, like Wrigley played really bad for hitters last year. I don't know if it was like extreme like wind blowing in just randomly on a lot of home games. It just was like one of those years where like they were unlucky. The hitters, at least, the hitters were unlucky to have the wind blowing in a lot. I don't know. I'm not sure, but like Dansby Swanson is just another one of the Cubs whose power was way down last year. And unfortunately, with Swanson specifically, I think he's he's like a 240 hitter ish, a 240, 245 ish hitter, that it's like that needs to come with 20 plus homers at least. And because the steals, he stole 19 bags last year, which is nice, but I don't know if you can really like trust the steals necessarily. Like if you put him down for like 15 steals and he comes back with 15 homers and 245, that's kind of terrible. Like that's hard to stomach even at MI, unless you're in a deep enough league, but if you're in a shallow league, 15, 15, 245 is really not, it's going to be tough to stomach that over the course of a full year. But I mean, I do think, because he has hit 27 homers and 25 homers over the course of seasons in the past, and he is only 31, maybe he can get back to 25 homers and 15 steals. Because if he can get to 25, 15, 250, that is like you've gone from a guy who's tough to own to a guy who actually is pretty solid. So, I mean, I think that potential could be there, but I really don't have much faith in it.
Yeah, I think this is just an accumulator at this point. He's going to play enough. He's going to hit in the right part of the lineup. He's good enough. He's going to play every day because of his defense and his contract. And like you said, we've seen upside from him. He could get back to 25 home runs. As you mentioned, the park played ridiculously bad home run wise last year, and I do believe it was wind related. It just, whatever reason, they never really turned on the summer heat and kick of the wind to help out, kind of normalize everything in Chicago. Also, I think the park is a neutral or pitcher's park, and there is less wind now. So with all the stuff they've built around it, I do wonder if maybe it's just kind of playing more as the park build as well. But I don't have any numbers to back that up at all, really. Just a guess. Number 22, Ceddanne Rafaela. We talked about him already. Number 23, Zach Neto. Last year he went 23, 30, 70, 77, 249. You have him down for 15, 26, 62, 69, 241. The numbers were fine. They actually went down a little bit, but everything was in line with what he was doing. He was caught stealing 10 times. It didn't stop him from running, though, just like we were talking about with Abrams. So it didn't seem to matter too much for Neto. But what do you think about Neto, who had, again, a very nice season last year?
Yeah, only person who doesn't care about caught stealings as much Davey Martinez is probably Ron Washington. He's a close second when it comes to just run. Who cares? It's an incredible. By the way, that is an incredible strategy. It's like ignore everything we've learned about steals, just run. Who cares? So I think with Zach Neto, I was actually higher on him before I heard he had shoulder surgery. So I think when I first released my rankings on Patreon in early December, I think I had Nato higher, and then I might have moved him down. Well, I definitely moved him down. I forget exactly when it was revealed he had shoulder surgery, but I don't really want to mess with shoulder surgery on a hitter. If I can avoid it, I'd prefer to. I do think Nato assuages some of those concerns because he also gives value with steals, so that helps. But if he hit 23 homers last year, had shoulder surgery, I haven't projected for 15. That might even be optimistic. I don't know. I mean, other people, I see the other projections that are in front of me. I see people projecting for 20 to 21 homers. I don't know. I kind of worry about the power with the shoulder surgery. And also, he's not really a guy who I expect power from to begin with. Like, he's just like, he's like a 17 to 22 homer guy in general, that now he had shoulder surgery. So that's a pretty big concern for me. And also, like we mentioned previously with Volpe and Wynn and Edwards, like with the hard hit percentages, and Nato has like his hard hit is around 32%, which is okay, fine. But he hits so many fly balls that if his shoulder zaps him of power and he's hitting fly balls, like last year, he had only 23% strikeout rate, a 295 BABIP, but he hit only 249. So if he's neutrally 240 hit, 245, say, if he's neutral a 245 hitter, he's hitting fly balls, shoulders zapping power. Like, this feels like a guy who could really just like run into having a terrible season. So I I don't trust the Angels really at all. I really am I'm real wary of the Angels. So if you have a 15, so I have them projected for 15, 26, 241. To me, I mean, that feels about right. I don't know. I'm kind of out on them, but I think if the price is reasonable and the league is okay. So, I mean, we're in a place where I've already said this is these are more MIs versus shortstops. So if NATO is at a place in the draft where I can draft them, stash them on my IL for, in a 12-team mixed league, draft them, stash them on my IL, see what happens when he comes back, and, potentially kick him to the curb if he's not good by May in a 12-team RCL type league. Now, in a deeper league, I'm not super interested, but I think the price is going to dictate it more than anything.
Yeah, it sounds like I like him more than you do. I have him above this spot in my rankings, but not a significant amount. I actually had him higher. Then, as you mentioned, the news came about the shoulder, so I dropped him some. But I mean, even if the power drops off, he comes 15, 30, 250. It's very similar to what you're wanting from I don't know, Jeremy Pena on the upside, or I mean, it's better than I guess Xavier Edwards give you a lot of stolen bases, but from a power perspective, that's kind of in that Xavier Edwards range if he goes 15, 30. So
okay, so if I can push back on the NATO versus Pena. So you have two guys. So NATO is 20 point under on the average projections wise. This is not just me just making up numbers. So Pena should hit for 20 points higher on average. He's probably got the same amount of power. He's got a little bit less speed, but NATO also had a shoulder surgery and we don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm taking Pena, not by a lot. I mean, I don't have Pena, a tremendous amount in front of him, but I'm still taking Pena over NATO.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine if that's how you want to do it. I'm just saying that
argue with me, God damn it, argue.
No, I have Pena over Neto too. I'm saying then
what are we talking about? We can't argue about things we agree on.
Sure we can, Gray. We can absolutely do that. You don't know me, obviously. You don't think I can't argue something we agree on. No, I mean, I like Neto. I think there's some upside with him. I had him higher again, and then I had to drop him because I had him in the Tovar range originally.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it took a little bit for me to drop him down to where I have him now, which is again slightly higher, but not a significant amount. Let's move on. Regardless, let's move on. Somebody I'm still going to give you shit about. Number 24, Bo Bichette, who is going as a top 15 shortstop on ADP, by the way, which is ridiculous. Last year in 81 games, he had 4 home runs, 5 stolen bases, hit 225. You have him down for 16 home runs, 6 stolen bases, and 71, 73, 272. He did have a calf issue. Before he had the calf issue, he was hitting 237 with 4 home runs and 4 stolen bases from the start of the season to mid-June. I don't know if you can prorate that out. It's still not very good. Exit velocity, hard hit, barrel, all declining. First strike was the worst in 4 years. A 5.3% home run to fly ball is Xavier Edwards-esque. Swinging strike and K rate were actually fine. So there's at least that, along with the 269 BABIP to give some hope, I guess, Brett Gray. But I still feel like you have him way too high.
I have him too high. I think you're failing to recognize that people are drafting him 100 spots before I have him right.
I know, it's craziness, Gray.
People, okay, so people are me and you were on the same page. I'm also out on Bo Bichette. I have him I have him ranked a good 100 spots after his ADP. So people are drafting Bo Bichette by 20 draft spots in front of Anthony Volpe. Now, we've already talked about Volpe, 2020 to 45. Bo Bichette won't he won't come within 15 steals of 20 steals. I mean, he won't come anywhere close to Volpe's speed. Could they come to the same amount in power? Maybe. I mean, maybe if you get lucky with Bo Bichette, maybe Bo Bichette reaches Volpe in power. Maybe. So same amount of power, maybe. Steals nowhere near him. No, not even in this. Even when Bo Bichette was healthy in a good year, would he come anywhere close to Volpe in speed? And maybe he gets the same average. Maybe. And you're also talking about a guy who's coming off one of the worst seasons of all time, and you're drafting him 20 spots in front of Anthony Volpe. That's crazy. That's great. That's honestly, that might be crazy. That's straitjacket stuff right there. That's you're getting dragged out of your draft, and people are and they're gonna take you to the loony bin because that's nuts. If you draft Bo Bichette before Ezekiel Tofar, someone's gonna show up at your draft and take you to the loony bin. I'm telling you that right now.
It's me. I'm going to show up at your draft. I'm taking you as a just benefit for the entire world. I'm getting that person out of this world. It doesn't need to happen. That's craziness.
That's crazy. I mean, that's
964th on the player rated grade. 964th.
Even if you take out even if you say, okay, he's gonna bounce back, an insane amount of bounce back, the most bounce back anyone's ever bounced back. and he goes 20 and he hits 20 homers, steals 7 bags, and hits 270. It's still lame. I mean, it's still okay, who cares? That is still not worth above Ezekiel Tofar or Anthony Volpe, even if he bounces back in the most insane way. He's also above Xavier Edwards, by the way. Xavier Edwards, so we'll say 5 homers, 35 steals for Xavier Edwards. Flip those, so 35-5. That Bichette's nowhere near that. He's nowhere near those numbers. It's insane, man. Seriously, stop drafting Bo Bichette inside the top 150. It's crazy.
It is crazy. If you do that and you listen to us, you can just stop listening to us, quite honestly. Just move on. Find you another podcast to listen to.
Someone else. Stop listening.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Number 25, Carlos Correa. Last year in 86 games, had 14 home runs, 55, 54, hit 310, 388, 517. Young projected for 17 home runs, 64, 52, and 276. He did have the best K rate of his career, best contact rate of career, everything else pretty much in line with the averages that he's established. I mean, it was a good season for him in 86 games, Greg.
Yeah, I will say that Carlos Correa, if nothing else, he has single-handedly proven that the pitch clock doesn't add any steals to your game. That's it. He is single-handedly going against the pitch clock and everything it seems to stand for. I mean, forget not to mention the pickoff throws. Has he never gotten into a situation where he's gotten 2 pickoff throws? What? I don't see. He is. I know that he's got plantar fasciitis, but I mean, Albert Pujols used to steal a bag or 2. I mean, Mickey Cabrera's stolen bags. I mean, come on, man. Carlos Correa hasn't even attempted a steal in 2 years, and he hasn't actually had a steal since 2019. 1 steal since 2019. That's incredible. Oh, I mean, that is really like, that's amazing. That's not easy to do. Even Austin Riley was like, oh, I guess I can steal a bag. I mean, it's like Pete Alonso steals 3 bags a year. I mean, it's not like you don't have to be fast to steal a bag. I mean, come on, man. Anyway, yeah, I mean, everyone knows Carlos Correa. Otherwise, he's 20-ish homer guy with 270 type 270, 275 type average. And he's probably going to miss roughly 40 games.
Yeah, I mean he's budget Corey Seager. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's good.
Next tier here, number 26, Tommy Edman, slotted to play center for the Dodgers. Last year in 37 games, after missing most of the year with wrist issue, he had 6 home runs, 6 stolen bases, and hit 237. Young projected for 11 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 62, 64, and 251. I think the problem here is he's just not interesting, Gray.
Yeah, no, he's probably not. He's probably not interesting. But you can sort of you can kind of galaxy brain yourself into being like, well, if Mookie gets injured, then Tommy Edman becomes a number 2 hitter, and maybe I mean, there may be
30.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. Actually, Tommy Edman to me it feels like a guy who I'm gonna draft in like every single league just for the Tokyo series and then drop him. Drop him week 2. I feel like that could be happening with me and Tommy Edman, but you never know. It is a good lineup, so worse things have happened, I guess.
It is a good lineup, and he still has power speed. I will always give Tommy Edman crap because, well, he came from St. Louis, so that's what happens there. Moving on to the next few who are guys we've talked about. 27, Tyler Fitzgerald. 28, Joey Ortiz. 29, Otto Lopez. Brings us to number 30, the rest of the Trevor Story. 26 games last year. I'm not even going to read you the numbers because it was 26 games. Projected for 8 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 41, 38, and 228. His total games per year in the last 4 years, Gray, 142, then 94, then 43, then 26. I think based on some mathematical algorithm, he's going to play about 3 innings this year.
Yeah, it's a secret formula. you can't know how we came to those numbers, but he's going to play.
I just use the word algorithm. Nobody knows what that means, and just let it go. It's okay.
I just thought about a funny person who's let's be honest, it's probably a guy. It's a guy drafting Bo Bichette and Trevor Story in the same league. That person, for some reason, that person makes me laugh. That's like, actually, I shouldn't laugh at them. They're probably like a stalker. It's like, hey, man, she's not that into you. I'm sorry. she's just, I get it. You had fun, but it's not going to happen again. It's just not. Just stop texting her. Bo Bichette and Trevor Story is just not going to work for you. I'm sorry. I honestly, I mean, I'm surprised that Trevor Story is even going inside. Like, yeah, I mean, he's going inside of like the 12 team mix range. Like that's surprising to me because I mean, I don't, with Alex Bregman, who we'll talk about next week with third baseman, after the Red Sox signed him, I started getting annoyed that the Red Sox signed him because that means what that means for Christian Campbell. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, Trevor Story is not really going to play. And it's like there'll be room somewhere because Trevor Story's. I mean, unfortunately, I doubt we get through spring training and Trevor Story is still playing. But I mean, we'll see. I don't know. He feels kind of like, if you're expecting more than, maybe 80 games, I guess, it's really optimistic to say 80 games. But I don't know, say 80 games maybe you'll get something in those 80 games. Like maybe he has like a solid half season. But yeah, other than that, I don't expect much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what a solid half season looks like. I mean, it's got to be mostly stolen bases, and I don't even think his contract buys him batting order anymore. So, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm grabbing Christian Campbell, and David Hamilton, even if they don't want to start Campbell's clock so early, because yeah, I don't believe Story is going to be in the lineup very long. Would you say Story games played or Jacob deGrom innings pitched?
I'd go Story. But that's close. Yeah, I'd probably go
About 50 on both.
yeah, because like I mean, Jacob deGrom, I don't know if he gets out of spring training either, but yeah, I kind of hope. I mean, this sounds horrible to say, but I kind of hope deGrom and Story both have great spring training, so people draft them.
People just draft them
because I mean I know what I expect, but you don't know what other people are expecting here. Once I see the craziest stuff when you pay attention to what other people say. Like I don't know if people need like content to fill up their sites or what, but it's like when they're saying stuff like, "Ooh, DeGrom looks good in spring," it's like, okay, sure. Okay.
Anytime he's pitching, he looks good. I mean, that's not really.
I know.
Really
That's not the issue. I mean, but we'll see, I guess. Hopefully DeGrom pitches, hopefully he throws 32 starts and Trevor Story plays 162 games. It won't matter for me either way. It's irrelevant for my game. But yeah. I don't expect much. That's what I'll say.
Look, I said Chris Sale last year at this time was not draftable, and I was clearly wrong. So
yeah, he's still not though. He's still not, but yeah.
All right, great.
People are now drafting him in the top 5 starters, but that's on them. Okay, so is that it? Are we done?
We're done. Let's pick out one or two to talk about here that's left over. Okay. And then we'll go from there. I mean, we've already covered 30 shortstops. So, I mean, we've covered a good number. We've covered middle infielder even in 15 teamers. But who else do you like that's left?
Okay. Well, I don't like anyone who's left. No, I'll say, so here's the thing. He signed with the Rays, Ha-Seong Kim. So I don't necessarily like him, but he's injured. It's like the old joke. The restaurant's food stinks, but the portions are good. No, it's like Ha-Seong Kim is injured. And I don't love him, but the fact that he's injured actually might work for us because people are going to forget about him. So if you can like get him like crazy cheap, which he is right now, I think in drafts, he's basically free in most leagues. So if you can get Ha-Seong Kim for free, that's not a bad gamble. The Rays are going to be in Big Stein Stadium. So maybe it helps his power a little bit. You're not really getting him for power anyway. The Rays also don't really, I mean, they're pretty free and easy when it comes to steals. So Kim could steal some bags in a prorated season. Maybe he misses the month of April. But if you have an IL slot, that's not terrible. So you bring him in to, he comes back in May. You play him then. And maybe you get a top 20 shortstop from May through September after he returns. It's not terrible. I probably in most leagues, if you don't have an IL slot, he's not really worth stashing. So you kind of need an IL slot. You need the right type of league because who knows if the Rays platoon him. Like there's definitely caveats and there's a reason why he's free because he had shoulder surgery too. So there's definitely reasons why Ha-Seong Kim is free in drafts, but there might be something there if he comes back like, mid to late June. Excuse me, not May. If he's back in May, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I like Brooks Lee in Minnesota. He came back from injury last year himself, but then he had a really hot finish to the season in the minors, hitting 8 home runs and hitting 308. Then came up to the majors and hit 3 home runs there. So, I don't know if he has a job as of right now, but with Carlos Correa being in front of him, there's definitely an opportunity for some playing time at some point. So if we're down this far and you're stashing people in a draft and hold or in a deeper league, I don't mind taking a look at him. And then Jordan Lawler, I don't mind also taking a spec gamble on him, former top prospect. Obviously had a little bit of an issue, but there's some room in the Arizona lineup that he could find himself with a job, and he's got a really nice power speed combo if he can get a job out of camp. So if you're just shooting darts this late, I don't mind either of those guys.
Also, we should mention Acuna with the Mets. I don't know where he's playing, but he's already been up, and he played a decent amount last year. He played two and a half weeks, but still, he was already up with the Mets. I don't know where he's playing right this second as we record this, but that doesn't mean like every team has injuries, and a team with Sterling Marte, Jeff McNeil, Jesse Winker. It's like there's going to be a Brandon Nemo has already said he's already nursing an injury. There's going to be something that is going to open up a spot. And also, they're not going to hesitate about promoting him because they're trying to win now. So I don't love, like, in a redraft league, in a 12-team mixed league, he's not draftable. I have him ranked like 400 overall. So he's not necessarily draftable in all leagues. But if you're in a deep enough league, like an NL only or a deep 15-team mixed league where it's like a draft and hold, Acuna is probably going to come up at some point and get at bats. We're right now, we're not sure because it's unclear because everyone supposedly is healthy, but that could change, pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. The Alonso signing may have kind of closed the door on an immediate opening, but as you mentioned, plenty of places he could go. He can play second, third, short, and center. So he could kind of slot in for just about anybody as the openings come for that older lineup. All right, Gray, we covered probably the most, not even probably, the most exciting infield position for the season. It only took us an hour and 38. That's pretty darn good for us, Gray. If you have draft questions or ranking questions, whatever else, you can find us on Twitter at RazBeaton or at Razzball for Gray. Find us in the comment section on razzball.com or youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Till next time, Gray, have a good one, and we'll be back to talk third baseman.
All right, Lates.